Welcome, Courtney. Thank you so much for being here. Courtney is a TEDx speaker and the author of the books Give Yourself Permission and The Change Starts Within You. And I read it on your website that your mission is to help people build confidence so they can lead with intuition. And I highly resonated with all of those keywords within that. So I'm really happy to have you here today. And I would love to start by hearing a little bit about your journey.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be here. And I feel like I'm talking to all the women that you talk to here on this platform. And it's so exciting. So, yeah, to anyone listening, my journey has been a really long and windy one. And I get this question all the time. It's kind of, where do I start? And one of the places that I usually start is at the place where you think you have everything that you're supposed to have to be happy. And that typically resonates with people because I think we're just kind of bored with this game of getting to, like, you're supposed to get somewhere and then that somewhere is supposed to be the thing, or you're supposed to become someone and that someone is supposed to be the thing. And what I noticed continuously throughout my journey was it was never the thing. So I got to be an executive at one of the biggest companies in the world. I got to jet set everywhere. I was married. I was a marathon runner. I had a daughter. I had like all the things, right? And I was miserable. And I actually coined the term miserably successful, or at least I think I coined it because I'd never heard it before. And I realized, wow, there's so many people around me in this, or I would say on this hamster wheel, right? And that's what I felt like. I was like, I'm just on this hamster wheel and this cannot be it. And so that's sort of what started the quest, I think, where you and I pick up and where your story and what you've done. And also, I think probably a lot of women is, hey, there's gotta be something better than this. Like, this is not all that there is. Tell me this is not all that there is. And so that was kind of the start to my first book, which Your Change Starts Within You, that you mentioned, because I was like, wait a second, maybe I can access some of these deeper things within myself. And so started to do that and share the story of that. And then, this past year, the second book came out, and it just feels like every year is just sort of exponential in terms of becoming me. And I think that's probably why a lot of people are here.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, I listened to some of your interviews, and I think that was what really grabbed my attention when you described, success before, like how we see it in society nowadays, and then essentially it's more about becoming ourselves, and that's what I'm also trying to, help women with the Right Academy. And so, how did you know that a change needed to be made? What was that point in your life when you felt like, okay, this is not it?
Well, for me, I always like kind of joke that it was multiple cold shower moments, where you just get blasted with this cold shower of just, I don't know, almost despair. I want to call it despair. For me, it was just, I was out of myself, and I wasn't, because I was never in myself. I was never fully in myself. So when I started to realize, whoa, I'm so disconnected from the truth in me. And it was so painful. I think it's really painful for a lot of people, but I think we just go through the motions of our day to day. We go through the motions of who we're supposed to be, the role we're supposed to be playing. And when I started to realize I'm playing a role, and guess what? We all are. We all are. The person, the persona is the role. It's the mask. It's what you wear. And you're so much more. And so I kept coming to that conclusion. Wait a second. Shoot, I'm playing a role. If I'm playing a role, could I play a different role? And that's when my life started to really shift, because I started to realize, oh my God, yeah, I can play all these different roles. And as I started to kind of take the costume off of the character I've been playing, by the way, that makes people really uncomfortable. It's like, imagine you're in the middle of a play and you're all acting your appropriate parts, and one of the characters just like, I'm taking my costume off. Like, I'm leaving the stage. I'm exiting stage left, right? That's what I kept doing. And it made a lot of people highly uncomfortable. And it made me highly uncomfortable. I mean, I think if anyone's listening, get ready for the discomfort of it. But then every time I was able to re-enter with a different costume, I was able to re-enter as a different character, knowing that I was not the character. Mm-hmm. And that was the difference. So like I said, multiple cold shower moments that woke me up to you're so much more, and then playing around with this so much moreness, which is so exciting. So yeah.
Amazing. Yes, I guess the consciousness of it when we know that it's a mask or a costume is a huge difference. So what happened afterwards when you made this decision?
Well, I made so many decisions like that, you know, and I think that's the thing that we have to kind of keep doing. We have to keep, as they say, dying to yourself. Right? You have to, and it's freaking hard. And the more you go on in creating a great mask, the more you're like, oh shoot, I have to die to that one too. Like I'm in the process of dying to another one right now. And it's hilarious because I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, well, so where does that leave me? Well, it just leaves me back at the 0 point field. It leaves me back at the place where anything's possible. I mean, I was doing a podcast interview yesterday. I'm like, okay, yeah, one of my things that I want to do is I want to do stand-up comedy, which is like totally crazy and weird, but I'm just like, I want to do stand-up comedy. So lately, also because I have this now, it's like, I just want to laugh so much more. So I've just been watching a lot of stand-up, you know, and so in the evenings, I'm watching a lot of stand-up. I don't laugh at all of it. Some of it I really do get a good chuckle in, but it's so exciting because I feel like, wow, this is so much fun to just think about the art of making people laugh, or and whatever kind of artistic form. But for me, it's like I just keep coming back to that question of like, okay, now how do you die to this character so something new can be born? And it's just a really exciting way, I think, to live our lives. It doesn't mean that you don't show up in the ways that you need to for certain things. Like it doesn't mean, oh, now I'm playing a different character, so I'm no longer a mother. Like, you know, I don't have that option. Thankfully, this isn't. I call this. I just did a post on this recently on Instagram. I was calling it multiple personality order. So it's all of the ordering of your personas. It's like, oh, I get to be this, and then I get to be that, and I get to be this other thing, and now, hey, I want to add this other bit onto it, and you're just expanding into this limitless potential. I know I kind of got off a little bit on a tangent, but hopefully it also answers your question.
No, it does. It does. It's really interesting. I love the idea about the order because I think it's really important to pick a focus, I found, because especially as women, we get so many roles to play and it can be definitely overwhelming. And I think the order is a really good idea. Thank you for that thought.
Well, yeah. And also I want to say something about the mothering thing specifically, or whether there's another role that you have in your life, you meaning anyone listening, that you feel like I can't leave this role. This role is fundamental to my being. That doesn't mean you can't change the way you're showing up in the role. When I learned that distinction, I was like, holy moly, like I could be a completely different mom. And I became a completely different mom. And it's so cool. It's so exciting. And it's just allowing ourselves, it's giving ourselves that space. As I said in the second book, you know, giving ourselves the permission to change the way you're showing up. So yeah.
Amazing. And so can you give us different examples from your life when you just decided to stay in that role, but it was a completely different kind of you representing maybe?
You mean when I stayed in one, even though it was making me uncomfortable and I was like, I don't have a choice, I have to stay in this role? Or do you mean something else?
I mean, something like when, let's say, motherhood was the number one in your order, but you decided to do it in a different way. What did that look like?
Well, first, I think we have to be mindful about ordering things. I think we have to be really mindful because especially as women, we have been dogmatized to think that everything comes before us. And I call bullshit. Sorry to swear, but I call bullshit. It is not sustainable. And this is why you see so many women stretch so thin. And I'm like, no, actually, guess what? You're a human and you get to come first in your own story. And that does not mean that you give any less or love any less. In fact, it's the exact opposite. And I really want us women to move away from a lot of what, you know, sometimes it's referred to like a patriarchal impression on us, whatever it is. I don't care. What it's about is control. That's what it's about. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I don't care where it stems from, but it's control. And then we took it on, and we're so powerful as women. Like, we're just, wow. I mean, we are, man, I mean, we make babies, okay? Like, and we do so many other things. I mean, we're so powerful, and yet our powerful has been sort of systematically stripped from us. And I don't want to get into the reasons, the wherefores, when it happened, anything. It doesn't matter. What matters now is take your power back. And taking your power back means, first of all, I'm not going to order things. I'm actually going to go through life the way I was intended to, which is enjoying all of it. And guess what? Now in this moment, I get to enjoy being a mother. And now in this moment, I get to enjoy being an entrepreneur, because that's something that I get to do. Because before, I was seen at one point in our society as the end all be all, because the mother, the female figure, not even the mother, the female archetype was so revered, and then went from being revered to being totally different. And again, we don't have to look at the story, or the history of it necessarily. What we have to look at is the possibility that we have now as women to say, enough, enough. I don't have to order. I don't have to control. And guess what? Life is happening for me, and I can step into that fluidity, and I can move with that fluidity. I can move with life, instead of constantly sort of putting myself in the middle of this current and saying, no, I have to be this way, or it has to be that way. Again, I call bullshit. It is not true. I am living proof. Everyone I've worked with is living proof. We are living proof. The fact that we're here, the fact that whoever's listening, the fact that you're here and able to listen to this, you are living proof. So that, yeah, sorry to get up on the soapbox, but I get really excited about that stuff.
Love it. I couldn't agree more. And what helped you kind of get aligned with that current, or what helps you in your everyday life to go with, if we could say it that way?
That's a super good question. And for anyone listening, I want to say, pay attention to yourself, because anything I say may resonate. You'll feel it in your body. You'll be like, yeah, that thing, or it may not, or it may resonate when you're listening. And then when you try it, you may be like, I'm not ready for this right now. This isn't the moment for this. For me, staying in the current, staying in that current, because it's a current that you just get to ride, okay? For me, one of the biggest ways that I stay in it is I get quiet. I get quiet. There's nothing more to it. It is the simplest and the hardest thing you will ever have to do. And you'll have to do it over and over and over and over until the voice inside you, the intelligence, I would say, I wouldn't call it a voice. It's an intelligence. It has many different ways of expressing itself. That voice will become paramount in anything and everything you do, if you keep dealing with it. If your devotion to it is so great that you let it guide everything. That you say, no, I know there's all these distractions and everyone's telling me to do this, that, the other. And if I just get up at 5 a.m. every day, bullshit. I say, you just got to sit with it. There's one of my favorite quotes ever. I'm going to paraphrase it because it's referring specifically to the male species, but it's all of our problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, right? And just get with yourself, woman. Just get with yourself. And I mean woman, I mean women, I mean us. Because when we get with ourselves, we like this rising takes place within us. It's a rising. And then the rising takes place outside of us as well. So that's one of my things. That's my biggest thing. I would say just get with the intelligence, however you want to call it, void, God. I've called it by so many names. I talk to it all the time. I was out walking before our call today, and just out walking, talking to this intelligence, being like, oh, okay, you're responding with the leaves or the river or whatever it is. That, I mean, however I hear that response talking to me or speaking to me or communicating with me. So that's one. Getting outside, moving, crucial. We are spending way too much time sitting. In fact, I'm so mindful right now about the time that I spend on my computer. It's very, very little at this point, which is really funny. I mean, I think I was doing 2 interviews a day after the release of my book. It's really intense, plus all the client work and everything. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Mama's spending way too much time in front of a screen. Like, that's not gonna, that's no. So there's a rigidity, but I didn't realize, going back to the corporate me a long time ago, how detached I was from the wisdom in my body, just because I wasn't moving very much at all. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we just don't think about is that we are storing so much in our bodies, in our physical bodies, that needs to be released for us to step into those new personas. So move. If that means you just get up and dance, or you just shake for a little bit. Shaking is one of my favorite practices, by the way, just shaking out every part of your body. I talk about that a lot. Even in talks, sometimes I make people do it because I'm like, dude, you got to get with this. It's so powerful. But so there's no excuse of, oh, I don't have the time to go for a walk every day. Fine, get up and shake, or just get away from your computer. I used to joke when I was in corporate that my greatest ideas came when I went to the loo. Mm-hmm. But it was the only freaking time I was getting up from my desk, practically, right? So it's like, oh, wow, wait, there's a connection there. Get up, move, right? And so when I realized that, I was like, boom. So that's a huge one. There are many, many more, but I think those are 2 that if you use those 2, regardless of who you are, even if they're not entirely in resonance, they will become more in resonance. And then there's so many other things. I give a lot of different things in my book that I personally do, but yeah.
Great. So being quiet, alone, and then movement are the top 2, you would say. Completely agree. And do you primarily work with women?
That's a really good question. No, I don't, but I'm very attracted to working with women because of the fact that we have so much power that we don't realize that we have. Whereas men will be like, oh, I'm so powerful, you know? And I love men. They're wonderful. And I work with some amazing men all around the world. But they're more confident. And women, when that confidence starts to surge in them, and by the way, confidence is not what we've been trained or taught to believe that it is. And I talk a lot about this. We can go into it if you want. But when women start to uncover that confidence, they're unstoppable. They're unstoppable. And they are fierce in their softness. Mm-hmm. And that is so freaking amazing to witness. And because I've witnessed it now so much, I mean, I give talks to, thousands of female entrepreneurs around the world, and I get to see the light go on. I get to see that awareness and that awakening of their consciousness to this potential. And it's just, bam, it feeds me in ways that my work with men is a very different kind of genre, and it's great. But working with women really, like I said, it really appeals to me for that reason specifically.
Wow, I got goosebumps the entire time. You worded it, fierceness in softness, or how did you put it?
I think I said fierce, like they're fierce in their softness. Like it is both. It's like the lioness that doesn't need to show you anything.
Yes.
The lioness is fierce, but she's soft.
Yeah. And I feel like
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go.
It takes so much more courage to be soft than to be tough. And we're kind of told to, toughness is the cool thing to do. And it just takes away so much from us and from the world as well. So I love that thought. Beautiful. And yeah, I would definitely love to go into the confidence topic with you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Sure. So it's really important for people to stop believing that confidence is like, oh, I'm able to talk in front of a lot of people, or I'm really assertive. Again, that sort of masculine quality of I go in and I penetrate. Basically, I penetrate, right? The female consciousness, and again, this is not to assign gender roles or even to exclude certain gender identities. This is about the essential nature of that sort of yin yang thing that's in all of us. It's in all of us. I have many beautiful masculine traits in me, and I do not shy away from them. I love them. And I have many beautiful feminine traits, and I do not shy away from them either. And at the precise moment that either one is needed, or a mixture of those two, or a hybrid of them, they emerge because that's appropriate to the situation. Okay. So when I talk about confidence, not talking about that assertive kind of energy that has been typically associated with being a confident person. Okay. So typically we say, oh, like they're really confident because they can speak in front of a lot of people. That was one example that I just gave. It's a great example because a lot of people say, oh, that means you're confident. No, it does not. Confidence comes from the Latin confidere, okay? And it means with trust, with full trust, with reliance. So what that word means and what the nature of that concept is I am going to relax into life. I can fully trust what is unfolding in me and around me. Boom, you're unstoppable. Why are you unstoppable? Because you're going with it. You're not trying to make anything happen, quote unquote, as they say, make it happen, hustle, bustle, whatever. No. You are literally relaxing into the fluidity of it. And then, as I said, at precisely the right moment, the right traits, the right things come out because they're needed and required for that specific moment. And you don't do it. It happens through you. So this trust, this reliance for me, building that again is about getting quiet. It's like, okay, there's this intelligence in me that knows all. I, the persona, the ego, the small I, and there's nothing wrong with the ego. I love the ego. The ego is what's allowing me to have this conversation right now. It's what allows me to go into forget corporate 500. It allows me to go into a corporate 5, a Fortune 5, room and talk to the CEO and the CFO and be like totally in my element. It's what allows me to speak on stages all around the world. It's what allows me to do that. I love it. I love it. Let's not bash the ego. It's the lowercase I. It's the lowercase it's the persona, it's the character that you're playing. Love the character. Why not? Sure. And then change the character and love the next one. It doesn't matter. But what I'm talking about is this deeper intelligence that you are beyond the name, beyond the role, beyond the title, beyond the accolades, beyond the esteem, beyond all of it. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the intelligence. If you get with that intelligence as often as possible and you allow that intelligence to lead the way, that's confidence. That means I trust. Now, by the way, it's absolutely absurd that we don't allow this most of the time. Because we need to rely on this intelligence for virtually everything that's happening in and around us. Everything. Okay? I don't go to bed at night and say, is the sun going to come up in the morning? Is it not going to come up? Is it going to come up? Is it not going to come up? Wait a second. Let me create a 5-year plan for the rotation of the planets. Okay. And I don't do that with what's happening inside, right? I don't say, oh shoot, like, is my heart beating? Is it sending oxygen to my vital organs right now? Like, hold on, wait a second. I got to stop everything because I'm not sure if this is happening. No, I let it go about its business and I go about the business of just living. I'm just living. And the more we can relax that, because like I said, it's absurd that we don't do that with the rest because there's this infinitesimal part that's left over and we say, but not that thing. I got to control that. I got to control how long it's going to take for my business to bloom. I got to control how much money I think I have to make this year because if I don't try to control it, then the whatever, like I don't even know. I got to control this relationship or this dynamic because otherwise it's not going to last. Let it go. Let it go. Trust. Keep coming back to I trust. And I know it's hard because I got all screwed up in that dynamic too. And sometimes it's easy to flop back into it because society says, oh my God, if you don't have this thing. And every time I realize now, oh shoot, like, whoa, I just got caught up in that dynamic. That's not real. That's not real. What's real is the intelligence in you. And what's real is the fact you're here today, you're gone tomorrow. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for your thoughts. That's what I was going to ask. Like, how do we keep this sustainable? Because, yeah, in tough times or if something comes up that we didn't expect, and also everything around us is kind of distracting this feeling within us. So how do you keep coming back to this feeling when you're distracted?
One, I try to shake myself out of the character that I'm playing. I really intentionally try to shake myself out of the character. Like I'll switch things up all the time just because I'm like, oh shoot, I'm getting encrusted again. Like there's this calcification around this character. I don't want that. Boom, let me change my routine. All the things they tell you not to do, right? So they say, wake up at 4 a.m. and go for a run and make sure that your eyes are, as soon as this like light comes out, that you're looking up at the sky so you can start activating serotonin as soon as possible. And then, like all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh shoot, no. Some of those things, yeah, they speak to me, and some of those things, like, no, I can leave that there. And guess what? I don't want people to come to me and say you're this. And people do that all the time. Like they'll come to you and say like, oh, you're this thing. And I'm like, no. I mean, that's something I might do occasionally, but it's not who I am. So really trying to take it up. Like, for example, last night, and this is the first time I did this, but last night I actually wrote a little list. Like, how are you shaking it up tomorrow? Like, how are you changing how you show up? And I just wrote down 4 things that I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to change this, that. And I did this morning, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of nice. I'm sort of living in a little different, I feel different, and this is a question I get lots of times, because people say, gosh, you look so different. Like if you spend a day with me, you will actually see my physical self change in the arc of a day. But if you spend longer, you like connect with me, you'll be like, how the hell? When I give talks, sometimes I show a picture. I don't usually use slides. But I had to use this one picture of myself from like almost 10 years ago when I was in corporate, because you cannot believe that it's the same human as standing in front of you. In fact, over half the audience does not recognize me at all. And the other half, when it starts to dawn, or the other close, I don't know, a quarter, when it starts to dawn on them, you hear, I mean, they just can't believe that it is the same human. And it's not the same human. That's what I'm trying to say. And I teach about this. I talk a lot about science when I go into science with people, because I really want people to understand the science of change. Like there is a reason why I've been able to change that way. And I link the different sciences together. So I'll talk to you about neuroscience or epigenetics or quantum physics, and I'll link some of these key findings so you can understand you're not the form. Mm-hmm. You're not the form. You're overly identified with the form. You think the form has to look like this, it has to look like that. I'm just like, dude, I'm just playing. And yeah, I get entrenched in that sometimes. And I think, oh, well, let me just, take care of this thing. And fun. If it's fun, fun. If it's not fun anymore and you feel like it's an obligation or something, like, oh, I have to show up in this way or otherwise people won't like me or blah, 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 shake that shit off and go about, reforming yourself through the formless. The formless will reform you. Okay, it'll shape you. So that's one of the biggest things, is just to remember, like, you're not this thing that you think you are, or that this like identity. You're not. Just keep coming back to that remembrance. You're not. And it could be that if you're listening to this and you have the luck to be associated with what it is that you're building right now. I mean, the people listening, the good fortune to have come across someone like you who's looking to build something that's meaningful and expanding potential and all of that. If there's something in these episodes you're doing, or however the trainings that you're doing, that really resonates with you, that you listen to it and you're like, boom, oh my God, I'm lit up from within. That's it. You keep coming back to that, not because anyone is your guru or anybody's telling you what to do, but because it's reminding you of the truth that lives within you. That's the kind of resources we need to be looking for. If you hit on something like that, you go back. People think, oh, I just go on to the next thing. Stop. Go back. There was something in there that was reminding you of the truth in you. Go back. So that's one of the things that I often do in my own world, is like, my own world. That sounded very, in my own little, it's called Cortney sometimes. But I go back to some of those resources, some of those people, some of those, things that have really influenced me. And I'm like, yeah, dude, there's more there this time. I'm finding something new every time. And that's when you've connected with something, like I said, that's true to you and to who you can be. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you do that through meditation, this type of reflection, or do you do journaling, or what tools do you use to help you reflect?
I mean, sorts of things. I think what it is, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's your devotion to it. It's your intentionality around it. It's like, dude, I'm devoted to this thing. I don't even know how to call it, but sometimes I call it the divine, sometimes I call it God, sometimes I call it intelligence, sometimes I call it the void, sometimes I call it space. I'm like, dude, I'm devoted to you. I don't know really what you are, but I'm devoted to you. And every time I deepen into that devotion, and it can come in so many different forms, I think let's not get hung up about the ways. Let's just know that that's the truth. Like that force source energy will guide everything for you. You can relax into it. It's your greatest partner. It's the only one that's not going to leave you. It will always be there. You relax into it. I mean, some of these times in my life where I was searching for some kind of thing to help me get out of where I was in a dark state, or I was really, really down, or I just felt like I couldn't, my vision was so far away. And I would try to reach out to people, or I would go to resources, and it just wasn't doing it. Or I would reach out to people and they weren't there, you know, people I love who are always there for me. Like if they knew in that moment that I needed them, they would have been there, but they were doing something else. And I didn't bother to say, hey, whatever the hell you're doing, I really need you, which we can do. And that's great. But I didn't. What happened was in those moments where I didn't have anywhere to turn, I turned to this intelligence. And those were always the biggest breakthroughs ever, 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 ever. So to your question, do I just get quiet? Yes. And when I feel like I kind of, you know, I don't know, like it's so noisy up there that let me just go to somewhere else. I go somewhere else, but I make sure that I go where I know I'm going to get something that feeds me so that I can go back into that darkness, because it is a darkness. And you think about it as women, it's like the womb. Okay. The womb that creates everything. Go into that darkness, that beautiful, murky, dark place that you're like, oh my God, but it's so scary, but it's so freaking amazing because it's literally creating all of life. So you go and you get with it and you're just like, oh my God, it's actually just the most magnificent, magical place ever. But am I scared sometimes to go in there? Yes. Am I scared sometimes to dive into the depths of it? Yes. But there was I remember once I was at a conference and this guy stood up and he read something that I believe he wrote, and I wish I knew his name because I would attribute it to him, but he said, do the calm depths of the ocean know of the tumult? Or no, sorry, does the tumult, I'm going to botch this, but I'm not going to botch it because the idea is do the choppy waves, or does the tumult of the surface of the ocean know of the calm at its depths? And you could put it either way, like, does the calm know of the tumult? No, it doesn't. Like, it doesn't mean anything to it. It's just like a little kid's, you know, having a little tantrum. Down deep below, there's this, like, it's a tectonic energy. It moves worlds. So we get with that tectonic energy and we're like, oh, crap, this is what I am. This calm, deep, immensely powerful force is what I am. It's the truth of what I am. Hold up a minute. Yeah, and it all shifts.
Amazing. Thank you for your thoughts. Is that how you discovered your mission? Was that a sudden feeling within, let's say, one of these quiet moments, or how did you find that path?
That's a really good question. That is a question with a multi-layered answer, probably. Part of me probably was always aware. You know, it's funny. When I was growing up, I would always get, teachers would say, you're a teacher, you're a teacher, you're a natural born teacher. I would always kind of like pull people aside and kind of want to, but I always, whatever they were saying when they were saying that, I always was like, no, I'm not a teacher. And even as I was older, I became a professor. I mean, there was I cameoed as a professor for a point for some big it's the top 10 universities in the US, the Big 10, sorry. And even then I was like, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a teacher. But what I realized at a certain point, and it's probably because of my love of etymology, my love of words. I love languages. I love studying them. I love knowing how to communicate with people. I mean, if I go somewhere like later in the year, I have to go. I'm going to do a workshop in Germany, and I'm like, damn, this is a language that I haven't learned. I have to learn the basics. Like I want to learn because I want to be able to communicate and understand a little bit more about the words that they use, because our words are shaping us. So anyway, I digress. But the point I'm making is I started to consider the etymology of the word to educate. And to educate comes from edure. It means to draw forth. And I realized, holy moly, that is what I'm here to do, is to draw forth the genius that lives in you. That's what I'm here for. And the other thing that I realized at some point that I was here for, and it didn't come through a meditation, it came through a gradual process of, actually, I would say almost suffering. Suffering, trying to figure it out, blah, 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 all these things. But the second thing I realized was I was always getting this, oh, you're so enthusiastic. And lots of times people would say it in a very not kind way. Like I remember one of my bosses, he's like, you're really great. You're really great. I mean, you're doing everything. You're so good at your job. You're just really enthusiastic. And like that was a bad thing. And I was like, woo! I was like, yes. I mean, because here's the thing. Enthusiasm comes from entheos, which means God. So for me, if you tell me I'm enthusiastic, I'm like, dude, she just gave me the biggest compliment ever. Like, yes, God is coursing through me. When we talk about genius, you know, the word genius, it's funny because people say you're a genius. And I think Liz Gilbert covered this in her talk, but I loved it because genius, what we used to say, you know, when that word, the origins of that word, genius, a human character cannot be a genius. Okay. Genius is the energy, that intelligence that's coursing through you. So what they used to say is genius runs through him or her. And I freaking love that, because I'm like, you're not the genius. I'm not trying to show you that you're like, you know, some megalomania, but I call it a cold and lonely hallelujah. Like it wasn't an earth shattering meditation that I was in, and all of a sudden my vision and my mission became so whatever. I don't even use the words. Well, I certainly don't use the word mission because it just sounds so crusader-like. I'm not on a mission. I do have a vision. You know, there's a beautiful line in the Bible, without a vision, the people perish. I have a vision, but it's not so much a vision of, yes, there are things that this form still feels excited about and wake me up and get me excited, but I just get excited about everything, right? It's like, oh my God, I get to be here again. What is this? Look, I get to talk to you today. You know, this is just so much fun. So the vision or the knowing of why I'm here, I would say in a way it was so innate. And if I look back to when I was a little kid, and I look back to teaching, or I look back even earlier and I look back to seeking answers in books, like I grew up in a very messed up environment. Okay. So anyone listening who's like, oh, well, you know, they can do it or she can do it or whatever. I'm like, dude, you name any kind of messed up and I've probably lived it. Okay. And that's not to say I'm a victim, because I'm not, because I don't choose to be. And if you've been listening, that's because you're not choosing to be that either. You're not choosing to imbibe that character. What you're choosing instead is like, oh, hey, wait a second. That's actually part of what created this beautiful form. I have a diamond analogy about that if you want a little bit later. But I want to answer your question, which is, I think if I look back, it was always clear this is why I was here, but it wasn't clear to me in my conscious mind was not aware of it until, I don't know, the last years, it just becomes increasingly more clear. I'm just like, every single thing I do is driven by that. Whereas before, there were lots of distractions in the way. I was driven by, what do people think? I want to look a certain way. I want to come off a certain way. Again, I call bullshit. And I came back. I was like, dude, that's just painful. Let me get back. Let me get back. Let me get back. So yeah, that's that.
Love your thoughts. Thank you for sharing. Do you feel like these difficulties in our past can serve us as fuel to move ahead in our lives?
Most definitely. They can serve as fuel, or they can serve as really toxic crap in you that drives your behaviors. Like if I say, I was abused as a young child. So now I have permission to abuse other people, or now I have permission to be really angry at the world because this happened to me. I have that prerogative. Like in a certain sense, I could say, yeah, you can choose that. These are choices. And I don't care what anybody says at this point about this, because no matter how hard the choice is to make, it's still a choice. I heard something brilliant about this. I loved it so much. This is so good to help people, to help bring this home. So the Michael Singer, I think that dude is really cool. He goes to prisons, and there's just something that I'd like to do too. I'd like to go into female prisons at some point and talks and things. Anyway, he goes into prisons and he says to the inmates, he says, hey, if a gorgeous woman came in here right now, like the most beautiful woman you ever set eyes on, and she just starts stripping in front of you, would you be able to not look? And all the inmates are like, no way would I be able to not look. Like, I'm in here for life, man. Like, that's probably the last time I'm seeing anything like that show up. I am definitely not going to not look. And Michael Singer says, okay, listen, if I came in here before this beautiful woman came in and I said, look, if you avert your gaze the entire time that this woman is in here, I'm going to have the president of the United States show up with a pardon for your prison sentence. You got a house waiting for you in Malibu, brand new Tesla. You got millions in the bank. You don't ever have to worry about working or doing anything ever again. Would you be able to avert your gaze from that woman? Hell yes, I would be able to do that, comes the answer. So you cannot tell me, no matter what the temptation, because it's a temptation too to fall into like, oh, I have this story and I'm this person and all these things happen to me, and I get it. And I am not blaming nor am I shaming, because I get it. I totally get it. And every moment is a chance to choose something different for yourself. And that's the beauty of this experience. Is like, freaking A, I get a chance I screwed up so many times. I'm telling you, I personally, have screwed up so many times and been like, oh my God, life is giving me another chance. It's giving me another chance to choose a better way. Oh my God, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. I'm taking it. And then, oh shoot, I didn't take it again. Okay, fine. I get to take it tomorrow. I get to take it later today. Fine. Doesn't matter. This is not about judging or criticizing or freaking out or saying, no, it's like this moment is fresh and it's new and I get to choose. And if it means I'm going to avert my gaze from the crap that has not been serving me, and I'm going to put my gaze on what is, and again, this is science, my dear. And this is one of the things that I talk about is like key findings in science is like, we're not paying attention to our attention. And your attention is so powerful. What are you giving it to? It's so powerful that companies spend trillions of dollars annually trying to capture it. What are you giving it to? Come back, come back, come back. Take your power back. That's it. So, yeah, I think it can serve you. I think it can serve you because you take that experience and you use it. You use it for what you want to become. You use it for helping people. You use it for making the world a better place. And every single other being or situation that you light up is you changing the world. Changing the world because you changed what was happening inside of you. Yeah.
Thank you. As my final question, what would be the number one thing that you would tell younger women on their journey or just beginning their journey? If you could just say one thing, what would you share?
Relax. It's the hardest thing for us to relax. And it's the most powerful thing. And if it helps, you can think of it if you like to make love, you can think of it that moment before or as you're making love or when you make love and you just totally relax into your lover's embrace. You totally relax into your lover's love because you feel such safety. And I would say that's another thing for us women specifically. And I know you asked one thing, but I'm going to say this too. Cultivate as much safety. Give yourself as much safety as you can. Because as women, our systems have been so hijacked. We're not used to feeling safe. If we don't feel safe, we can't relax. If we don't relax, we can't create. Not in a beautiful way, not in the way we're supposed to. So in any ways that you can, that you know, like, oh, it helps me to feel safe when. Answer that question. It helps me feel safe when. It could be when I'm cuddling up on my couch reading a book. It could be when I'm talking to a girlfriend who really gets me. It could be when I'm in the woods. It could be I feel really safe um, when I'm holding myself. Like, I don't know. I don't know what your answers are, but you do. And if you relax into that sense of safety, it's a felt sense. You'll feel it in your body. It's not an idea. Okay. It's a sensation. That'll allow you to relax. And if you relax, it's your oyster, man. It's your oyster woman. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And about the books, I would love to recommend your books in our community. Is there a key takeaway or anything you would like to share about the books with the audience?
I think that first book is if you're really kind of at the beginning of your journey and you're wondering where to start, because that was kind of me figuring out, oh, I lived this life up into this point. I don't want to live this anymore. How do I start to change? And it's a super quick read. And it actually has a lot of actionable sort of things that you can do to start discovering yourself. Whereas the second book has some of that, but the second book really dives into the science. Mm-hmm. And it moves from like a linear progression where you can kind of understand, oh, I'm getting into this linearly with my mind. And then it moves into this non-linear, very expansive space that we as women can really occupy. So for me, the second book is like, this is an evolution. Like a book is a snapshot of your consciousness in that moment. My consciousness has already shifted so much even from when I wrote the second book and published it last year, right? So it's like, it's a snapshot. But that snapshot is a reminder and it'll speak to you wherever you are, the different pieces. There will be different pieces that speak to you, whether you're struggling with like, oh man, I'm having so many thoughts. How do I start to manage my thoughts differently? How do I start to inform my being through my thoughts? That'll answer that. This book will answer that. Whether you're trying to figure out how you invite more play, because so many of us don't play. We're like, oh my God, I don't even know what I can do to have fun anymore. I don't laugh as much as I used to. It'll answer that. Whether it's how to feel more confident and how to cultivate that confidence, it'll answer that. So those are the different kind of gateways, and just only a few of the gateways I think that those books provide. But yeah, that's them.
Cortney, thank you so much for your thoughts and for your time and for your work so far. And I'm really excited to see where you're going in the future. And I hope I get to talk to you in the future as well. This was really valuable and inspiring to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for creating the space for so many women, and to all the women who are listening. Thank you. I love you. I am so proud of where you are in your journey, and the fact that you came here it's such testament to who you are. So thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.